some of the money managers are called derivatives trading groups, and so on.
High-frequency trading as well.
Oh, high-frequency trading, yeah. These things should not be allowed.
I agree.
You do?
Absolutely.
Well, wonderful. I'm glad somebody's
Absolutely.
on the radio.
I've done a show on derivatives. I've done an entire segment on high-frequency trading called the Quants, about how it's already systemically built in to the banking elite. It's already happening. It's built in. It's part of their infrastructure.
You're right.
Which is so frightening.
Absolutely. And it represents, if you think about it, that represents a type of class warfare that is built into the structure.
Yep.
Now, we don't want to even talk about class warfare. Everybody says, oh, you're promoting class warfare. No, we're just recognizing it. It's what it amounts to. And it goes further than the derivatives traders. It goes further than that. It goes all the way into the themes and the so-called principles of economics. I can trace it all the way back to Adam Smith for you if you want.
I want you to do that, but I just want to go back to one thing. I want to be clear about new money coming into creation. Can you explain this to the audience? It's funny, I have G. Edward Griffin coming on to discuss the entire Federal Reserve tomorrow. But the thing is, when new money is created by loans, is that from the accounting system that the Federal Reserve uses about liabilities? Can you explain that?
It's essentially an accounting privilege where it's what is known as fractional reserve banking, where the banks can lend money or they will credit an account out of thin air. They can create it out of thin air on certain rules, depending on the reserve requirements. And even that is questioned whether or not any reserve requirements are needed. We have materials and to explain this is a bit difficult because virtually no one really understands it. We have materials written by the chairman of the Bank of England, governor of the Bank of England, which show that he doesn't understand how money's created in his own system. So when people ask about this, you have to understand one of the greatest protections for the present immoral system is the difficulty in the language. The words that banking uses sometimes mean the opposite of what people think they mean. It's extremely confusing. And when you take an audience into it, it's like leading them into quicksand.
Well, definitely into a Gordian knot. The further you get in, the more you can't really get out because it's so complicated. You get stuck in there.
The closest thing I would liken it to is, remember the Zippity-Doo-Dah movies?
Yeah. Unfortunately, it shows my age, but yes.
Remember the Tar Baby?
Yes.
That's what it's like. Here's the important thing to consider, though. Our money system, the creation and the power over money, has been privatized.
Right.
That was privatized basically in 1913, according to different rules than exist now. It's a moving target. It started being heavily dependent on gold, and that a little at a time got removed. But the main problem is privatization. You cannot expect private people to act totally in the common good. The money system should be operated for the common good. And when you put it into private hands, they're basically going to tend to operate it, and over time more and more, for those private interests. That's what has happened. And the people don't even know it. They think the government is in charge.
I remember watching Greenspan give a short interview on a YouTube video, and he said, we do our own thing and we're not answerable to anybody. And as long as the president does what he's supposed to do, everything's fine. But basically, it was very clear. He was very upfront about it. There was no hiding it. Right out there. Right out there.
Absolutely. Kim, this is another reason to call into question the ability of economists. How many economists objected? They didn't. They went along with it for the most part. There's a few exceptions, and we know some of them. We have some of them address. We have a monetary reform conference every September in Chicago at University Center. We used to hold it at Roosevelt. Now we shifted over to a new facility next door at University Center, and we have some of these really good economists speak there. Oh, and by the way, your listeners can see parts of their talks and some full talks at our YouTube site. We give them away there, and they can get to the YouTube site through our website, which is monetary.org, as I mentioned. Now, I remember watching Greenspan give testimony one time, and you may have seen this, but not many people have. At the end of the testimony, he actually said the following, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's very close. If you think, talking to the senators or congressmen, if you think you understood what I said, you're probably misinterpreting me. Yeah. Now, when he did that, Kim, I had visions of what should have happened. A giant hand should have come out of the sky and grabbed him by the scruff of the neck and just tossed him out of our nation's capital. That represented such a disgraceful attitude towards our representatives, the people that are supposed to be guarding our interests, that I thought, that's absolutely unacceptable. And again, you didn't hear a single economist bring that up. They're just too used to accepting everything from the Fed because they were so powerful.
Remember that many people relate to the Fed as our financial lords.
Yeah. And most people think the Fed is part of our government. It's not. It's ambiguous. There are aspects of the Fed that are related to government in that, for example, the president gets to appoint the chairman every 4 years. But once the board in Washington is selected, they are in for 14 years. There's no real congressional control been exercised much over them yet. Now, Congressman Ron Paul has done some excellent work putting forward a bill for transparency that has some excellent points in it and got a lot of support for it. But now what we have to realize is that these are the guys that allowed the system to take all of these incredible maneuvers with over-financing housing, extending incredible loans to incredible people. And ultimately now it brought the whole system down, and it was only the government stepping in that stopped unemployment from going from 9% to 90%, okay?
Let me ask you this. I can't remember if it was Hank Paulson or the other gentleman at the Fed, but somebody in Congress asked them, what was that $700 billion? What did that go into?
Yeah.
Like, what did you bail out? And the answer was credit default swaps.
You're only in our government. I can't tell you.
And so my question to you then is...
It was Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders, but it was somebody else with a beard. I don't think it was Hank Paulson. It was somebody else.
No, the person that was asked was Bernanke.
Yeah, that's it, Bernanke. That's right. You're right.
As he's now known, the Bernanke.
Exactly.
Everybody has seen those.
That was so profound. That was such a profound response.
Yeah.
We don't have to discuss that. Credit default swaps. Well, to whom? To what? What's
the basis of that power? You have to ask. Is it in the Constitution? No. It was delegated essentially by the Congress. Congress means both representatives and senators when they created the Fed. And the Fed has evolved over time in a lot of different ways, and it's a very different creature today than it was in 1913. It's a moving target. And rather than look for justification for it in the law or in the Constitution, look at the results. What has it done? This is a problem with economics methodology, and this especially is a problem of what's called the Austrian School of Economics, which is essentially the Ayn Rand, the people that Ayn Rand followers like. And it's exemplified in one statement from one of its main founders, Ludwig von Mises, where Ludwig said, "Mere facts can never disprove my theories." He actually wrote that a couple of times. Anyway, that's described in